That's the bottom line. You want a war? You're going to get one.
The cream will rise to the top, oh yeah.
Now you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
Hard work pays off. Dreams come true. Bad times don't last, but bad guys do.
We've got everybody, I think,
Everybody is here.
but I don't like how it's. I'm going to do it again.
Oh,
right.
you want to be up there in the corner. I got you. I got
You
you.
know what I'm saying. Can you believe it, guys? We thought just a few, it just seemed like yesterday we were anticipating the start of another UFL season, and here we are. We're already going to be talking about week 3.
It happens every year. It doesn't matter if it's the UFL. It doesn't matter if it's the NFL. It doesn't matter what sport it is. The anticipation leading up to the season is great. And then you get there, and the weeks just tick away faster and faster. Can't do anything about it.
Well, thanks for joining us, Marty and Robert. We have got a lot tonight. So
Tons to talk about.
Yeah, so I think that we need to get going right now on the game. So let's not waste any time. I'm going to start off. Let's start off. We're going to go right in a row here. So we're going to start off with the Friday night game. And let's go ahead and start with the highlights.
Years since he was the MVP of the UFL and
good in this league as has this Birmingham team. And he keeps it on the first play from scrimmage, got twisted around, and he may have injured himself. Alex Magoo still down after that tackle on the opening play by Noah Dawkins. It's Magoo here on 2nd and 9. Hands it off Ricky Person. Person bouncing off tackles, first down and more. And a big run by Person. Line up with the tight end and 2 backs. They hand it off. Ricky Person, plenty of room, and touchdown. In that third quarter. Going deep. Kane, got it. Touchdown, Birmingham.
Ball's on the left pass. Left pass.
Mike,
So-
Mike.
Us.
I was pretty taken back by that game. That is not at all what I expected to happen.
We do have some UFL history to announce, though, and those who don't know that Michigan defensive back DJ Miller made some UFL history, USFL conference history, being the first defensive back or first player in league history to have multiple interceptions in one game. So, DJ Miller, congrats from the bottom line to you on a wonderful performance for individual statistics wise. But going into as far as team performance, it's another year, another matchup with Birmingham, just one that I wouldn't even say got away from Michigan. It was just what a performance by Birmingham. What a rally back from a week they had against DC. Short week of practice as Skip Holtz. Skip. That's me during the game. Skip. Oh man, what a coach though. Great coach. It's just you got to respect, as Michigan Panthers fans, as much as we for what we know of Birmingham, you have to respect what they do. It's just you can't give up much against these Stallions teams, and it was a game that we had our own, or Michigan had their own turnovers. Just couldn't goal line, go fourth down, you run it 3 times up the middle and just get stuffed every time. Decent performance. I mean, they made a little flash at the end there, come back. It's like, okay, Bryce Perkins had a great game. He was able to run around, make things happen. As a quarterback, that you have to do sometimes. You got to make things happen, which he has the talent to do so. He did. We all saw that. The crowd erupted at Ford Field. So great crowd that night too. But they'll bounce back. I think it's still very early in the season. They'll see him again, maybe 3 times, depending on how the conference records fall out here as we go along in the season. But just a rough night overall for Michigan. I think some things to learn about, hey, as much as we all predicted Michigan, hey, is this the game? It's not yet. So a lot of things to work on, things to build. We saw the big trade, first trade of the season too, sending Marcus Sims for Cam Carter, offensive tackle from the Houston Roughnecks. So get some more meat up front, and that may help the running game too. O-line's scarce, folks. So if you think that this is losing a wide receiver for an offensive tackle, I mean, that's still a solid deal getting an offensive lineman too. So don't scratch your head at that. It's quality linemen here. That's
so after the week 1 start that Birmingham had with their week 1 loss, at the post-game press conference, head coach Skip Holtz was, as you can imagine, very optimistic, courtesy of the UFL. Let's hear what he had to say.
Hey, Coach. Mike Pelko from the Bottom Line Podcast.
Yeah, Mike.
What is it about this Michigan Panther team that always just seems to give you your toughest fight in this league? And what is it that, going into the preparation from a short week from the loss to the DC and then the turnaround to this one, and what do you usually expect from this team? And they always give you a hard fight, but what is it that Birmingham Stallions have that find the missing piece in the game to get over the hump?
Well, I think, it's always going to be a close game because I think they're one of the better teams we played. I think last year they had 4 losses. 3 of them were to us. 2 of them, one of them was by a point, and I think one of them was by 2 points. And then we intercepted a ball in the championship game only to make that one a couple-score game. They're all close slugfest dogfights, that we're going to be in. I think Mike is a hard-nosed, tough, physical football coach. I think they have a hard-nosed defense. They're very hard to get big plays on. They keep the ball in front of them. They make it a low-scoring game. And we know it's going to be a hard-fought football game when you play them. We've just we're blessed to have some great players that have been able to make one more play than they have going down the stretch. But I thought our team played with confidence today. I thought they played with some confidence. I thought they did a really nice job, especially defensively. And then offense, we got to get a little bit more consistent. We didn't run the ball the way we would like to today, but I thought we were able to make up for it with some of the controlled passing game and throwing the ball underneath to make some first downs.
So with that being courtesy of the UFL, Mike had the opportunity to ask another question to Mike Nolan about head coach Mike Nolan about his philosophy on his quarterbacks. Let's hear what Mike Nolan had to say.
Hey, Coach. Mike Palka from the Bottom Line Podcast. Hard-fought game, as it always is with Birmingham Stallions.
You all cleaned up, you know.
Yeah,
good.
Yeah. Thank you. I have a question about with the quarterback play. I know with this league, there's no preseason game, and I know how passionate you are about getting these guys playing time so they can get NFL looks. You know, to send them to the highest level they can play. Will there eventually be a full-time starter at quarterback as we go down the line? I know it's early in the season where we can say, okay, who's the hot hand here? With Bryce's performance tonight, will you pick a quarterback where it would be the full-time starter throughout the rest of the season, or are you still looking, will it always be the plan to get guys meaningful reps throughout a game?
You know, it's a week-to-week thing. It really is. It's not, I'm not set on rotating him. I'm not set on having one. I mean, in a perfect world, you have one guy. You know, as Tom Landry used to say, he said, you never have two starters. You got two backups if they're not going the same. And he knew a lot of good things, or he knew a lot of football. So until somebody really takes it by the horns and says, I'm the guy, I have confidence in both of them, and they both do a good job. So, you know, and we'll take it week at a time. So I don't know where we'll be next week with it. That's as good as I can do right now.
So Coach Nolan had to make reference that you were looking pretty good. So
yeah, he saw that.
By looking at Mike right now, what the hell did you look like back then that he had to make a comment?
Well, I mean, because we had the coaching clinics. I mean, maybe I had a little scruffier beard going on, but you know, I was looking pretty sharp at Ford Field, though. You know, anytime you're in that setting, you have to look your best. You know, you got the collared shirt, you know, the Bottom Line Podcast patch on the shirt. You know, I was looking sharp. You know, had the dress pants on, so just look your best.
That's dress pants.
Yeah, we had. Yeah, we were.
So Brett, nice bounce back game from week one. What was you thinking during and after with this game?
It's primarily what I expected, although, you know, I wasn't so sure that Michigan wasn't going to finally get past Birmingham Friday night. We've still got a lot of issues on the offensive side of the ball. I've heard some of Skip talk this week. I was really surprised that seemed like he was just going to ride with Alex last week and not kind of split the duties between the two. But I think Matt's going to be the guy to carry us forward. I really do. Hearing Alex might be out for a few more weeks, I understand. I believe he will be out this week against Arlington. Like I said, we've still got a lot of work to do on the offensive side of the ball, but I will say this. Michigan is known for their defensive line, and Birmingham, I want to know where that offensive line was week one because they didn't give up a sack against Michigan Friday night, which is something that stuck out to me more in that game than anything. Was the offensive line play.
If you look at pure numbers, if you look at total yards, Birmingham won the passing yards, Michigan won the rushing yards. You look at total plays, you look at yards per play. You couldn't tell who won this game by looking at those numbers. So in the say 6 games that they've played, I think Birmingham's 6-0. Why then, and I'll give this to Mike. Why then has Michigan not been able to come out on top? I mean, there's not a sliver's bit of difference in the numbers. Time of possession within 30 seconds, 10 drives, 56 plays apiece. Birmingham 271 yards, Michigan 252. Birmingham averages 4.8, Michigan averages 4.5. I mean, you look at those numbers. So I'll ask you, Mike, why has Michigan not been able to just bust through? And this was their opportunity. We talked about it last week. This is a game that Michigan could have really said, okay, we're the class of the USFL this year. And offensively and even defensively, as Brett mentioned, 0 sacks. They fell flat at home.
Yeah.
Why, Mike?
I'm gonna have to limit you. You're holding up 2. That means you got 2 minutes max.
2 words. 2 words. It's just 2 words. Special teams. That was the difference in the game last night. And you if you want to go back to the last game that they had, or last couple of games, when Jay Bates missed that field goal, he's doing great things in the NFL. But that was the closest that Michigan had Birmingham on the ropes. Down to that kick. But watching that game too, just seeing the return yards that Birmingham would get to set up field possession, you're just going, oh my goodness. And watching from the stands and from the press box, it just wasn't good. It wasn't pretty. That was the comments I was hearing around. I've heard that in the press room about the special teams. So very, that's a very much like, even when we look at all the stats, what you don't see really is like the field position, the starting field position, the return yards, and it's a lot given up there that needs to be cleaned up. Again, I give them the benefit of the doubt how early it is. You don't have you only have that scrimmage game. We're going into week 3, so hopefully that's enough time to, get things dressed up here. We're going to get down to the nitty gritty here. We're 1-1 here. So you got Birmingham back up, it's on top now. And then Memphis looking pretty good. You just, in Houston, they gave the Renegades a fight too. So you can't just play around with this thing. You got to get things cleaned up here pretty quick. Otherwise it's going to get into the thick of the competition here. You don't want to go into the last couple weeks of the season going, oh, these are must-win games, because you got these other teams breathing down your neck. So you got to clean up things, take care of business, and start, get that special teams cleaned up, because all field position matters. Like, as Coach Skip said in the press conference, Michigan likes to shorten the game, keep it close, play defense, and if you don't have a field position, that puts your defense in a bad spot.
Yeah. So that's gonna wrap it up for.
Do I get to answer this or no?
Yeah, go ahead.
You got, like they say in the presidential debate, you got a 30-second rebuttal.
Rebuttal.
Go.
Special teams, turnovers. Deion Kane's a great kick returner, and we probably averaged the best starting field position, like Mike said, only through the first 2 games. But the thing that stuck out to me, and you guys mentioned it to me during the game in the chat, was the play calling in the red zone. You've got a mobile quarterback. You don't want to go head up with Birmingham. Why not do a read option? Why not do a play action fake? You run it up the middle 4 times, you bailed out Birmingham. That was the difference.
Here, Mike, and always remember this, Mike.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
breathe, buddy. Breathe.
Noted.
So let's move on to the next game. And courtesy of the UFL, let's look at the highlights for Memphis at DC.
Oh, this one was fun.
Mickey Tiger. 3rd and 12. Perry steps up, gonna try to run it himself. Perry into the end zone. Touchdown, Shows. In his year at this stage of his development. To Amu, lofts it downfield, and it is complete to Chris Rowland. 3rd and 1. There it is. Just like they said. Ben Bresnahan. And they are celebrating on a beautiful night here in Washington.
Memphis gave them a run. They played
that was my game of the week there. Beautiful game.
They gave them a run. And as you can imagine, in the post-game conference, Ken Whisenhunt seemed pretty optimistic about his team yet, even after an 0-2 start. Courtesy of the UFL, here's where his comments.
So yeah, it was a tough game, tough loss for us. I'm proud of our team and the way they fought. I mean, there's a lot of things that we can clean up and continue to get better with, but I saw a lot of fight in our guys. I saw a lot of teamwork with our guys. Those are 2 things that I think will serve us well over the next few weeks. So, we just got to put this behind us and move forward. But I am, playing, it was a good football team. They were at home. They had a good crowd. Those are all things that you have to do when you go on the road. And I was really impressed with how our guys handled it. It was a lot of ebb and flow in this game, and some good for us, some bad for us, but they kept battling and hung in there. So, it's tough. It's just tough when you lose. But I'm very happy that our guys are growing like they're growing together, and we're going to be a good football team.
So here's a comment from KJ. Eric, what do you think? Do you think that there's a possibility that Memphis can contend for the number 2 spot?
I feel like the Showboats are a team that needs to learn how to win. You know, last year, would they win 2 games, Houston both times? They figured out how to win. I think defensively they played pretty well. You know, aside from that late pick 6, you know, they were in that game. That looks, 26-12 looks like a, no. I mean, that was a close game. They were driving to potentially tie it up, maybe even win. You know, here's another game. As Mike mentioned, best game of the week. Memphis needs to learn how to win. And I think Ken Wisenhunt and Horton on the defensive side, I think, KJ could be onto something there. Memphis may not be that, rollover team, 0-2 rollover team that, maybe we thought they might have been at the beginning of the year. So, Memphis would scare me. I wish we had them in the rearview mirror already, but.
Well, I'm going to get a chance firsthand this weekend. I'm going to make the drive down to the Memphis-Houston game. I'm going to be in the box for that game. So kind of looking forward to that. So spend the day in Memphis on Saturday and come back to St. Louis for the DC Battlehawks game on Sunday. That'll be a full weekend. Well, as you can imagine, head coach Harris was still very optimistic about his DC team getting ready to head to St. Louis. Let's hear what he had to say, courtesy of the UFL.
Another great win for sure, and another great defensive performance. Again, those guys played their hearts out, and we're excited about that. Offensively, we're going to keep chipping at it until we get caught up with the defense. But, that's what great teams are made of for, coming together, competing the way we did. And as long as we can stay in games like that with our defense, give ourselves a chance to win games, especially in a close game like that.
So Brett, what's your early on? What's your thoughts about DC? You think they're for real?
I know they had a all camp to prepare for Birmingham. Then you got to remember the coaching situation, and then the news broke today about Greg Williams being gone. Their lines of scrimmage impressed me. I worry how many more coaches and people in the leadership they can lose. I still probably overall favor, Arlington and St. Louis in the XFL conference. We'll get a pretty good read this weekend in St. Louis. I'm not saying DC's got to win that game. Hoping for a good crowd again, like usual in St. Louis. It's going to be a tough environment. But we will get a good idea this weekend for sure. I'm still just so, from one week to the next, but you got to give Memphis their credit. Memphis looks like a totally different team than last season. A lot more competitive. They look like in some key spots they're really improved. And we love Coach Flip, but the coaching was pretty solid Saturday night in DC, I thought.
We had a lot of interest in that game, didn't we, Brett? With how we were pretty excited about these showboats here because watching EJ Perry play in there, and I hope he made the studs list on your studs and duds here, Eric, with how his performance standing in the pocket looked like, just a true professional quarterback out there standing there in the pocket, the way he was playing and just giving their team a chance. And, and I predicted, he's going to do some things. I put on social media, Magic Man, EJ Perry, and he's done some great things for Michigan, and now he's with Memphis here. So, and then with the DC situation, so the Greg Williams situation too. This is my thoughts on that too, because he took the job to follow Reggie Barlow at Tennessee State, and then as someone in college football right now, the transfer portal is heating up right now, and it's all hands on deck for recruiting. And I think Barlow maybe gave him the call, say, "Hey, I need you here now." So, and then there was a post by Football Scoop, credible source with they are in tune with all the coaching moves out there in football. And, he's been, I guess, in Nashville for the last week already. So they have, he's full steam ahead at Tennessee State recruiting. His son is going to take the reins. Blake Williams will take the reins as the defensive coordinator for the Defenders. So great rivalry. Spring football, as you guys on the XFL side of things know how big of a game this is between the Defenders and Battlehawks. Make it a little chippy. We got two passionate head coaches there. We've seen them, I can't wait for that one. That's I think game of the week matchup there.
Well, the one comment I want to put up here that Ed puts up here, do you think you'll play an entire season or fold this year? We're not folding this year. It'll be a full season. In fact, I'm going to, and in fact, I signed up for the new sponsor of the UFL Underdog this weekend. I'm not only willing to put a bet on this season, but I'm willing to put a bet on the 2026 season that's going to happen as well. So that's all.
The league's not going anywhere. You've got some people that unfortunately cover the league. Sorry to cut you off, Ed. You know how passionate I am about this. You got some people that cover this league that are literally drama queens. They would love nothing more than to be right about this. Look, do we want more attendance right now? Yes. Do we want better ratings? Yes. But the league is stable. It's not going anywhere, and we will see you here next year talking about season 3.
And overall, the whole weekend with attendance was pretty good overall for the most part with what they're competing with television-wise. And, Michigan had the highest attendance number. Granted, beat 10,000, but you can't, all the improvement is always good. And getting over 10,000, I'm seeing on X that there's reports that Michigan's going to have a higher attendance number against San Antonio this Sunday. So the Sunday at noon game, probably more people are around and want to go see a football game. It'll be a lot of fun.
So with that said, let's move on to Houston Arlington highlights, courtesy of the UFL.
On 3rd and 6. Perez into the end zone. Caught. Touchdown. Green, the tall 6'4" receiver. It's that way, and it's caught. Emmanuel Butler for the tie. Brown under heat. Got away. Gonna run it. It's gonna be marked short. His knee was down.
Good job. Got a really good team, man. Great job. Appreciate it. Good luck the rest of the way. Thank you. Same to you. All right, good job.
So CJ really felt a reason to be optimistic, courtesy of the UFL. Let's see what his comments were after the game.
It's a good football team we just played. I think Coach Stoops and the staff, they don't make any mistakes. They do a great job defensively. They don't let you run it. They don't let you throw it. Offensively, they create explosive plays. They got a quarterback that's knowledgeable, does a great job. It's good. They do a heck of a job. We are right now. We're not starting fast enough. And we're not sustaining. Anytime there's a negative yardage play or a penalty over there, we can't sustain anything. But that's coming. These guys, some of our offensive players at quarterback position, they're new, but each week I see improvement. I thought the defense played outstanding.
I had a chance to go ahead, Ed.
So I was just going to pop up. I knew KJ would have comments on this game. So he says, bench Smith, start Nolan. It's that simple. No disrespect to either of them. It's just is what it is.
Is what it is.
Well, I had a chance to talk to Coach Johnson today, and, I believe with the way that they played against Arlington defensively, they do have a reason, from week 1 where the defense didn't look all that great against St. Louis to week 2 against Arlington, who looked good offensively week 1. So there's optimism there. My question to him was, how do you get the offense to catch up to that? He talked about things like, they got to run the ball. They've got to have balance. They've got to have some consistency. He's like, we put a couple good plays together, and then then we don't look so good. And I think, to be quite honest with you, and maybe you guys disagree, but I think in the UFL, at least early on, maybe minus St. Louis, and maybe throw Arlington in there, but the defenses are ahead of the offenses.
Absolutely.
And it takes 2, 3, 4 games to get going. Now, we'll talk about this game next. St. Louis seems to have it going earlier on, but it just takes offenses a little bit. And CJ talked a little bit about that today in his presser when I had the chance to talk to him. So just pump the brakes. Houston might end up better than you think or more competitive than you think.
And now they have Marcus Sims to get some offensive firepower, an all-league wide receiver that you have on your team that may open up some run lanes now with, they have this wide receiver now. Maybe you got to double up on him or whatever the case. Other teams will adjust accordingly. And then you get and whoever the quarterback is, you give him a weapon now. So, upgrade there. So, let's pump the brakes. It's still a ways to go. It's they can turn things around. We just saw it could have been Memphis too with their win as well. So you can't take any week lightly.
So as we had heard, and I'm sure Coach Stoops was hearing the same thing, was, why was this game so close? And, was it really that important for it to be a blowout? I mean, in any football game, a win is a win. But here was his reaction to being questioned about a close game.
A win is a win. No, you talk about the penalties, you talk about these little miscues, but at the end of the day, you have the W. How do you feel about that?
I feel great about it. There's something about winning tight games too. You're good enough to make the plays that make the difference. So it's always pleasing to be on the W side of it.
Pro football.
So then right after that, Luis Perez was asked, what's wrong with the offense? How can he explain only getting 11 points on Houston? This was Luis's response, courtesy of the UFL.
Ron Murray, K104. First off, fellas, big congratulations on the win. Just talk about the elements today and just winning in a different style and just where you really see the team progressing at this point.
Yeah, I think offensively, I can talk for the offensive standpoint. It was kind of one of those games, right? Like just we're driving, self-inflicted wounds, credit to them as well. We just couldn't get a drive and sustain a drive. We were moving the ball great. We just couldn't sustain drives. And defense did a phenomenal job keep getting the ball back, whether it was his interception or going 3 and out or just doing a great job and giving us good field position at the end to be able to come out with the win. But I think it's a good opportunity to build from. And, shout out to the defense, really.
Ed, I thought we were past this. John, I thought we bonded this weekend. I thought we were past it. This is UFL. We're on the same side.
Eric had a bucket list of reasons of why he drove from Northwest Iowa clear down to St. Louis. And he wanted to patch things up with John and make sure that him and John could be tight going forward. But
how'd that go?
Some things just aren't meant to be, I guess.
I thought good, but, he just can't help himself. Can't help it.
Hey, Eric's charming personality is still undefeated.
So what's your guys' initial thought on the big trade that went down today? I know that Mike's already commented on it, so let's get Brett. What are you thinking? I'll put up KJ's comment at the same time you're talking.
Well, I mean, ultimately in this league, you need lines of scrimmage, and I've heard many a guy, including Oliver Luck and other guys that have been involved with these Springs leagues recently say that probably at the thinnest position in spring football is at the offensive line. We're pretty deep, I feel like, as a league. Defensive linemen, we're going to have some of these guys probably get pro contracts just like we did last year. I see quite a few of these guys moving on the NFL, but offensive line is still the thinnest position. So it makes sense really for both teams. I think Michigan's got the wide receiving core. I'm questioning that maybe they're play calling more than anything, and maybe that's why they figured they could lose one of the receivers, and more of a need was at the offensive line position.
So as we talk about, we're always saying games are won in the trenches. So I understand how we talk about, trades where you have a marquee player at a skill position. I guess I say skill position as in wide receiver, running back, quarterback, that kind of thing. Should it really surprise us that a team that feels they have a need in the trenches, you really put your team in jeopardy of success if you don't address it. So, Eric, what's your thoughts on this trade?
I think it was, the first couple weeks have taught us anything. Being able to move the ball on the ground is essential. It's essential, especially early on, till these offenses get caught up and the passing games become, more a part of it. The running game is essential. I kind of look at it like this is a win-win. I think KJ, you had his comment up there earlier. Michigan needed help up front, and Houston needs to find some offense. And maybe Sims is that guy to help him find the offense, stretch the field a little bit, whatever it might be. But Michigan's philosophy is built around a good offensive line. And if you don't have that, I'm not sure Michigan can do the things that they want to do. So, I have zero problem. I couldn't grade this out bad for either side from a philosophical standpoint of what they were looking for.
So, Brad, how do you answer this question? Because KJ talks about the fact that they were weak on the line last year, so they finally addressed it and they beefed up their line. Now they go ahead and they trade one away for a wide receiver that in his opinion, they really didn't need.
Well, yeah, they've got number 11, and I can't think of his name right now. He had a pretty good game the other day. Was it Nolan? No, that's the quarterback. Anyways, I question that too, because I wonder, do they have the quarterback to get it to two weapons now? Did they need an extra one? And KJ's right. The only other offensive line that was worse in the league last year than Memphis or close to Memphis was Houston. I think as a fan of either team, you can kind of scratch your head on this and wonder, did we lose this trade? We'll see. We'll see. You know how I feel about Houston and the one main component that they're really missing, but we've touched on that. There's no point in beating that dead horse anymore. So
we really got Houston goes into Memphis this week, and both teams really need a win. Big time. So need it bad. So we'll see how that turns out.
Well, and then Marcus Sims already played Memphis, so maybe he can bring a thing or two to Houston to help beat the Showboats here. So that will be an exciting game, I think. And then we talk about the offensive line and quarterback, Nolan there. He can run around and make things happen. So who's to say he can't roll out, and make a big throw to Sims or any other wide receiver. So. And any good wide receivers that were on there before Marcus Sims that may have had some more attention from the defenses. Now you got to worry about Marcus Sims, all conference wide receiver. So I think it's going to be a big help. Like Eric said, there's who won this trade. I really couldn't tell you either. I think it was I would give it a win-win. I think it's just each team saw a need and they made a trade happen. Then Michigan, and to make things, it's like, hey, we're going to put our one of our best, if not the best wide receiver on our trade block. And then here you go. And then and Houston's like, yeah, let's do it. So
it's going to take a few games to, determine, did this help? Did it not help? But when you had Sims on the offensive side of the ball, the defense automatically has to pay attention. Yeah. And you're going to spread the defense out. You may have to play bracket coverage on his side, one underneath, one over the top. That opens it up for somebody else. Maybe that opens up for Brown, whoever it might be on the other side. Those are just some of the things. We looked in that first game, the first St. Louis game against Houston. Hakeem Butler had one target. Okay. Yeah. That means Houston completely ignored him? Absolutely, it did not. They had to pay attention to, even though we knew he was injured, and Ed and I both talked about it. We felt like he was out there to be a decoy. That means Houston could just say, "Well, don't worry about him. He's half injured." No, they had to pay attention to him. I think that's what Sims brings to Houston. Is it going to help? I don't know. Time will tell. But we know Michigan, Mike, and you can attest to this. They need offensive line beef to do what they want to do, and that's run the football, control the clock, shorten the game, to do all those things. So
maybe that. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Maybe that goal line stand or that stuffing that Birmingham put on Michigan. Hey, I'm sure Steve Kaiser was obviously watching that, going, "Yeah, we need some better answers on the offensive front." So you gotta make some moves, especially it's I think you just gotta address needs, even if it was for depth. Maybe it was for depth. I don't know what they're gonna do with Cam Carter there, but he's been in the league. He's a New Jersey General, so he knows his way around spring football. Maybe knows these teams and how they play. So like Brett said too, it doesn't hurt to have more offensive line help. And I just I think both teams just saw a need and they made a move. So we'll see down the line how that works out, but whether if Cam Carter's a starter, like anytime you can get some help up front, I mean, you can't turn that away. Or and I'm sure who picked up the phone first. That's what I don't know, or who made the initial conversation. So that's the one thing that maybe we get some answers down the road.
Right.
So let's move on to the last game of the week. San Antonio came into St. Louis for the first of their 2 games in St. Louis. Courtesy of the UFL, let's see the highlights.
That's also something that just messes with the defensive mind.
The Sailors switching sides at the end, out around the edge, breaks free for a touchdown. In a big way as a result of the trust that these guys have in the coaching staff. Wilkins and St. Louis back in the field, throwing a deep ball and connecting on a deep ball. Down the sideline and out of bounds for Gary Jennings on the first play of the drive. I would go for it on 4th here. Run it a couple of times. It's a run on another 3rd and goal. Sailors reaching. Ball comes out. What a huge stop. This will be a great angle. I never thought that Sailors was down because there was players under him. So the whole question is the ball over? I think it's actually going to be over the goal line. Away. To keep it at 17 for St. Louis. Is in his career in the NFL with the Jets. Former Baylor Bear. Sailors with the bounce outside for his 3rd touchdown of the game.
So the loss dropped San Antonio down to 0-2 for the season. And to make matters worse, they lost their offensive coordinator today.
A.J. Smith stepping down.
A.J. Smith stepped down as offensive coordinator.
And the decision that wasn't Wade's either. That was A.J. Smith himself.
Yeah, so let's hear, courtesy of the UFL, let's hear about Wade's comments on one of his biggest disappointments is just, the margin of victory or the margin of the loss the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's a little bit alarming that they weren't close games, And if we're losing by 3 points on the last play of the game, it's a lot different than, getting beat like we have the last couple of games. So, but we have a lot of high character guys. I really.
And he went on to say, later on in the press conference, he was addressing his defense, and he made this comment as well that has him puzzled.
My concern, too, is defensively we hadn't stopped the running game in 2 games. This game, it wasn't just the running back. It was the quarterback that had, I think, 60 yards. So, that we've got to play better against the run on defense.
San Antonio, we have a problem. This to me is probably the shocking team of the year.
A lot of expectation.
Well, what I don't understand is this. Where is McFarland? Where's Kirkland? I mean, McFarland had 3 touches in the first game for 32 yards. He had a long of 31. He had 6 touches in this game for 44 yards, a long of 22 or 26. 9 touches to McFarland. Ed and I were talking about it before the game about, McFarland scares. He scares me.
We had talked about Saturday morning in our Battlehawk talk that, the player for San Antonio that scared me the most was Anthony McFarland, and it really come to fruition. But it's like, the first game, what was it, 3 carries, 32 yards, like you said. Second game, 6 carries. He's averaging 9.7 yards a carry through 2 games. The problem is they're not giving him the damn ball.
And the quarterback play for San Antonio looks dreadful.
It's dreadful.
You look at last year, especially down the stretch when they got in the XFL championship before they went to the UFL championship, one of the biggest playmakers they had on the team was Anthony McFarland. You give him the ball, you know what they always say, when you got playmakers, you just keep feeding them because eventually they're going to break one. And when they break one, it's going to be a 60-yarder, 70-yarder.
Yeah.
So to have a player through 2 weeks that's averaging 9.7 yards a carry and you've gave him literally 8 or 9 touches for the season, that's just unforgivable. It's like, I don't know what they're trying to accomplish on offense, but one of them has to be ball control because they're losing the time of possession battle bad.
Oh,
and it's because they can get no kind of flow at all on offense.
And I'm sorry, Eric. Wanted to comment here about the AJ Smith part. And his offense is a passing heavy offense that that's part of the time of possession deal there. If you got incomplete passes and it just didn't look, not in Vikings fans, Ed, you know a little bit more about Kevin Mudd as a quarterback there, and I've seen some comments about Zimmer making he's probably saying, yeah, I was right about this guy. You have Hogan Kevin Hogan from Stanford as the backup for San Antonio, and I've watched some Stanford games, and he looked pretty good. He can lead some, put up a lot of points, do some things, and I hate that AJ Smith stepped away, because I think if they made a change of quarterback, I think they would have some things happen, had a chance, and that's going to be interesting to see how the offense works for the Browns moving forward.
Well, this is.
You think AJ stepped down because of how bad he's mismanaged this offense the first 2 games?
That's what I saw, and also what I read that Wade said in a conference or press conference, it wasn't his decision. It was AJ Smith came in and said, "Yep, I'm showing myself the door." So
yeah.
While we're talking about conspiracy theories, because again, not being in the locker room, we can only speculate. But I've been watching Kellen Mond, and I said before the season that being a Vikings fan, I got to see Kellen Mond play preseason and whatnot, and I just wasn't seeing it. So I kept just throwing it out there for the San Antonio fans to get their reaction. And I didn't want to be too hard on Kellen Mond, because sometimes it just takes time, and he may turn around this season and really show us something. But the biggest thing that I walk away from with these press conferences is that there is a major disconnect between Kellen Mond and either the rest of the team or the coaching staff. Because even if you listen close to Kellen Mond's reaction during the press conferences, it's very often that he's not really pointing the finger at himself. He's basically talking about, 10 players can do everything right, but if one player's wrong, that's what you get. And it's like, that isn't really, if you want a leader of your team,
that can't be what he says.
You want somebody that's going to take the punches and say, I got to do better, and I'm going to rally the troops. And, I had friends that I know that were at that game Sunday, and they made the comment that when he came off the field, he went straight to the bench and sat down. He wasn't coaching up the wide receivers. He wasn't coaching up the running backs. He wasn't coaching up the offensive linemen. He was just going on the bench, sitting down and waiting for his next turn. Well, you tell me a successful quarterback in this league that handles themselves that way.
I'm sure we could all watch Luis Perez on the sideline. He's totally different. So
he gives me, Kellen Mond gives me the vibe of, I can't believe I'm here.
I was just fixing to say he reminds me of someone that looks around and says, I'm better than this. That was exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, and Wade Phillips by proxy, when I watch this is what I get from Wade Phillips when I watch his press conferences. Pure freaking disgust. I mean,
every once in a while you see him look over at the quarterback like if looks could kill.
Like you would choke yourself with my hand, stupid. you know what I mean?
But Gino, as a contrast to that, let's talk about St. Louis and let's hear what Anthony Beck had to say. He's got high praises for his defense.
The sleeper in the house is our defense. I mean, that's 2 straight weeks of dominant football. We could have easily shut out both of these teams. Donnie, to me, is a guy that never speaks to the media. He's very unsung. Nobody wants to talk about him. Everybody else gets a lot of credit around this league for being really good coordinators. Donnie Abraham's the best coordinator in this league, in my opinion. He's got them prepared. He's got the buy-in. He's got credibility with the players because he played at the highest level when he played as a player, and he's got their attention. And our secondary has really answered the bell. So, one thing, too, about our defense is really fun to watch is I think we had 8 guys with 4 or 5 tackles. So you think about the entire defense, when you got guys all in the same, they're all getting their chance. They're in the right spots doing the right things.
So when you've got the defensive coordinator out of D.C., Williams, who's, had a lot of NFL experience, and he's really touted as probably the best D.C. in the league, I mean, that's pretty high praises for Coach Beck to go out there and say what he said about Donnie Abraham. What's your thoughts, Brett?
Again, I haven't missed a game this year, anyone's game. St. Louis just looks like the most complete team to me right now. It's very, very early. Again, it was them in Birmingham that I kind of felt like going into the season had the most loaded roster from A to Z. There was some others that was close. Michigan. I was really high on Arlington and some of the offseason moves they had made. But St. Louis dominating both lines of scrimmage. They're pretty much they look like they're pretty much doing whatever they want to do on both sides of the ball, and they have not, for the most part, been tested. So I'm anxious to see this weekend's game with DC with the kind of physicality and nastiness that they bring. And like Mike said, they've got a pretty good rivalry going between these two squads. So that's liable to be a very, very intense, fun game to watch.
Right now, Brett. And I'm not saying this is from a homer standpoint. I'm saying this from strictly, from football. To me, the Battlehawks right now, 2 games in, that's it. They look like the most complete team on both sides of the ball. I'm not saying that's how it's going to finish. I'm not saying that's how it's going to look like in 2 weeks. But I'm just saying right now, and I think that's why we're seeing them put up the offensive numbers they are, that they're scoring the way they are. And defensively, they're keeping that score down to the point where it's like they seem to be the most complete team. And again, I'm not saying that as a homer. I'm just saying that as just strictly looking at it from a football standpoint. Would you agree?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I am curious, and I'm not, shortchanging them for who they've played. Yeah, I think everyone knows how I feel about Houston and their coaching. San Antonio, the more I think about it, look back on it, and then you brought those stats up, Eric. AJ did a really good job with Wade at Houston with the Roughnecks, and then he did a really good job in San Antonio last season. I think they were too busy, like you said, maybe trying to shove Mon down everyone's throats and kind of lost sight of Kirkland and McFarland, which, again, is probably two of the best, 7-8 weapons in the whole league. And I'm anxious to see. I still think no matter what, St. Louis has got the best roster. They're playing the best, so they're absolutely number one by far in my power rankings. But I want to see them play a team that's playing a little better right now just to see how much disparity there really is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because the thing the thing that I look at is this. If we're going to say, and I'm not willing to say this yet about either team, but if we're going to say that Houston is the bottom feed in the USF Conference, I'm not saying that. Let's just use it for reference. And if we're going to say that San Antonio is the bottom feeder in the XFL Conference, again, that's not what I'm saying. St. Louis did what good teams are supposed to do, and that is dominate the teams that aren't very good. And so they handled them. Yeah, and so for me, I look at it as a fan and I say, hey, they went out and did their job. That game, again, being there, that wasn't even close. Yeah. I mean, San Antonio struggled to move the ball. They put together one good drive. And outside of that, I kept texting. I think I was texting Ed, where's Kirkland? Why aren't they giving McFarland the ball? I mean, I just could not believe how the game was unfolding in front of my eyes. And St. Louis was just doing, again, whatever they wanted to at will, up and down the field.
And then you talked about wide receivers not even getting the ball. Well, they didn't even have to throw the ball. The run game is firing as good as a running game you would want for football, right? I mean, don't put it in there if you don't need to.
Yeah. St. Louis goes 273 last week and 164 this week. The thing that I love about Manny Wilkins is we haven't had to throw the ball a lot. But when he has, 12 for 16 this year, or this past week. And last week, his completion percentage was 77%. So those are the types of things that I'm looking at. I would much rather be able to pound the rock, control the clock, and when Manny has to throw it, because we stretch the field like DC can, like Jordan Ta'amu can. We run the ball like Michigan did last year, and we play good defense. It's like, and aside from last year, we have a quarterback that puts 60 yards on the ground along with his 152 passing yards. That to me is huge. Ed, am I wrong?
So with that said, we are going to take a quick break because we got a lot of other segments we need to get to.
We do.
We're going to hear from our sponsor, Wild Sun Winery, who makes the best wine and beer in the country.
I can vouch for that.
But since we got our next guest here anyway, and you can tell he's just chomping at the bit to be a part of this discussion, we're going to bring him in on the segment that I think, from what I've heard with some of the stuff he posts, it's his most favorite segment ever, the Power Rankings in the UFL. We will be right back. So I'm going to part the Red Sea, and I am going to bring on our next guest,
Part the red wine.
none other than the Gabe Garcia.
What is
The
up,
Hellraiser
fellas?
Podcast.
What is up, gentlemen? Easy E, been a long time, brother. How you doing?
Oh, welcome,
Yeah, man. How y'all doing, man? I'm just sitting here enjoying the commentary, man. I love it. Y'all know y'all know what you guys are talking about, man, and I just love it. I don't like going and listening to some of those. You know, might be scrolling and catch a random podcast you never heard of, and you're like, "What the hell is this dude talking about?" And then you just keep scrolling. Well, with you guys, you know, people tune in, man, and I dig it.
Thank
What's
you.
up, fellas? How y'all doing, man?
So here's Brett's Week 3 power rankings. And I'm going to give you the first shot at blowing holes in it because...
Well, first of all, DC does not belong above Arlington. I'm sorry.
Okay, so having you know, being a fan of the team that has the best sounding quarterback name coming off your lips, tell me why Arlington should be above DC.
Because it's Luis Perez, baby. That's why. That's why. No, so okay. Now check this out. Now, okay, let's people. That's funny, man. And then you were talking about power rankings, and this is a classic example. This week is a classic example because last week when Arlington hung up 33 points, you know what I mean, and their defense was just ridiculous against San Antonio. What was everybody saying? Oh man, Arlington, look. And now this week, okay. You know what? Hey, shout out to Houston's defense, man. You know, the more you watch that game, Houston's game plan was very well done. They completely took the edge away from Arlington all game long. And it wasn't until the fourth quarter when Luis started kind of nailing in on that center of the field. So that Houston had a good job defensively. Their offense, on the other hand, though, I mean, was it more or was it a little bit of Arlington's defense? I mean, they were just all over Anthony Brown for a good part of this game. So now people are looking at, okay, Arlington only scored 11 points. What is wrong with Arlington? What is wrong with Arlington? Nothing's wrong with Arlington. Last I checked, they were tested, they were punched in the mouth, and they came out with a victory. The great teams do that. We saw that last year with the Stallions, with Birmingham, late in the season, man. They get punched in the mouth in a close game against Michigan. What did they do? They overcame it. And they went on to win a championship. I'm not saying that's what's going to go on here. But all I'm saying is power rankings are just what have you done for us this week? You know, and it's really just an argument point for people to argue on which team they think is better this week. As far as Arlington, I'm looking at the DC thing. St. Louis, I can go with that. I got to be the first guys to tell you, I questioned St. Louis going into the season because of the change of quarterback. I mean, I'm a big fan. I've always been a big fan of AJ McCarron. That's what I'm talking about. Brett.
I had to replace Mike for a second because just for a second I had to take Mike down because if Brett's got his power rankings up here, he's got to have a chance to justify what his rankings are. But I will say, Gabe, Brett has been a big fan of Arlington.
Yes.
Even before the season started, he was touting Arlington. So
well, and the only reason I'm talking about DC just being right under them is because DC, you know, they still have to yet go over 20 points offensively. Their defense is just good, and that's what I was thinking that they were going to be this year. I think Tamu does a great job of following that defense's lead. At times, he does a great job of managing the game, and when I look at both teams, I'm just like, I'm sorry, Arlington looks like a more complete team. Now, they're both unbeaten. I get it. So they both have an argument. But I tell you, it's this weekend, y'all, is really – it's going for the 4 teams in the 2 big games, the one to close it out on Sunday and, of course, Friday Night Football. It's gonna really change what this league is going to look like. And because we all say it, we see it, you know, and not just here in the UFL, but in the NFL. I always tell people, you got to wait 3 weeks till you start to see who the pretenders and who the real is. And it's even harder to say that in the UFL because there is no preseason. You know what I'm saying? So these guys are coming in. We don't know, is St. Louis going to be able to continue this domination? We don't know. Like y'all talked about, we're going to see what happens when they do get punched in the mouth, like Arlington did this week. You know, like I talked about Birmingham did last year with Michigan. So is that going to be St. Louis? We don't know. Will DC be able to continue this without putting up a lot of offense? We don't know. But one thing I do know is that the Arlington Renegades, right now, we know what they can do on offense, guys. We all know this. But I was looking at what we were going to be on defense this year. And right now, next to St. Louis, this team on both sides of the ball has got the potential to really do a lot of damage, especially in that conference. But a conference that I'm also looking at and saying, man, through the three teams that are unbeaten are all sitting there in the XFL. What is going on? Last year, it was the other way around. People were talking about how much better the USFL was. So it's crazy, man. But defend yourself, Brett.
So Brett, he brings up a point that he feels like Arlington should be above DC. So what was your thought process on putting DC at number 2?
Just Arlington's performance against Houston. And if it was any other team in the league, and again, I hate to be, like Eric says, bagging on Houston and beating on Houston. I'm just, maybe I should be from Missouri. Show me something. I might not be from the Show Me State, but shit, Houston, show me something. And they did show me something. They fought hard with Arlington. Arlington was flat. They reminded me a lot of how DC was against Memphis. But I had to put DC above Arlington simply for the fact that Arlington was so flat against Houston. And again, I had Arlington in my preseason rankings winning the XFL conference. How DC, and I know they had all off season to prepare, which is 4 or 5 weeks. And they punched Birmingham square in the mouth, like you said. They manhandled Birmingham on both sides of the line of scrimmage. Now, I would love to get a replay and a repeat with DC, especially the way their coach kind of handled our coach after that game. I would absolutely love a rematch because you can ask San Antonio what it's like to beat Birmingham and run that mouth and find out what happens later on. But that being said, that I had to put DC above Arlington, but we'll see.
So I had a chance today at his press conference to ask him the very question about, was there any concern, was there any positives that he could take from that 11-9 game against Houston, courtesy of the UFL? This was his response to my question.
Yeah, just a little more consistency at the line of scrimmage. I don't think we've been operating very clean at the line of scrimmage. You got a 3rd and 2, and it ends up, you get a procedure, it's 3rd and 7, or a 3rd and 3 ends up 3rd and 8. And you just put yourself behind the chains a little bit too often. So we've just, if we can operate at the line of scrimmage better than we have, we'll have a chance to, be more productive offensively.
I apologize.
Okay.
I probably need to scream a little bit more into my microphone when I'm doing these conferences. But
you're being so quiet, Ed.
It is funny,
What he said just makes sense, though. I'm sorry, and I don't mean to cut you off, Ed. I just want to get this out of my head before I forget it.
Before I say squirrel.
I wanted to touch on when you look at that 11-9 score. Yes, it was a very close game, very well fought game. But man, when you look at the stat sheet, like for both teams, it was just night and day. Like Arlington, they moved the ball. The problem was that, let's just give you a couple of examples. Y'all remember that deep pass Luis really had the coverage by the DBs for Houston was very good in this game. He was really having to thread the needle, place that ball in pinpoint accuracy. And y'all remember that deep one he threw right between triple coverage to Sal Canella. Landed it right on the money, would have put them right there in the red zone. Sal Canella gets popped with as much as I hate to say it, a beautifully legal hit that would have been a penalty in another league. But I'm just saying.
The no fun league.
Yeah, and he fumbles the ball, they lose possession. And otherwise, had he been able to hold on, they're right there in the red zone. We don't know what happens. Another one, they're driving down the ball, and it was like Coach Stoops said, at the line of scrimmage. We're sitting there on a third down, and all of a sudden you got 2 back-to-back penalties that completely takes you not just out of field goal range, but out of range to even get that first down. So they shot themselves in the foot like this, and most of this was in the second half because that first half, Houston played them very well. But
now, Gabe,
so it could have been a lot different, although it wasn't. Go ahead, E.
Now, Gabe, I don't want to name drop or anything. I mean, we do actually, Daddy Ed and I do have a connection to Arlington, and just as a little street cred here, I mean, this is our connection to Arlington.
We won't talk about his golf game.
Yeah. But so I do root for Arlington, and I do hope they do maybe just a little bit worse than St. Louis. But the thing that worried me about this game, as we talked about with St. Louis before, okay, maybe CJ and the defense, they were able to tighten some things up and make a really good switch from week 1 to week 2. But Coach Stoops talked about consistency. He talked about, being able to do it. And we talked a little bit before he came on that St. Louis is the team that's showing that consistency no matter who they're seeing. Do you think that this was maybe just a game that happens, maybe a little flat, whatever it might be? Or, do they have some things to work on to get to that point, at least, again, early on in the season where maybe St. Louis in their conference would be at?
Yeah, I really do believe that there are still some things to work on, especially because the majority of their offensive line is completely different starting than it was last year. Now, that's not an excuse, but I think that first game, I gave them the pass for all the penalties that they were getting on that offensive line. So by this game, I was thinking, okay, now we clean up the execution a little bit. And while there wasn't as many penalties on the line in particular, I mean, I saw a lot of missed blocks. There was a lot of missed assignments there. And yes, the execution, the consistency wasn't there. And if this game had been, let's be real, if this was this Friday's game, if Arlington goes like that, with that kind of lack of proper execution consistently into Birmingham, we're going to see the same thing we saw last year when these two teams met. You know what I mean? So I think Arlington, the core pieces, yes, we know they're going to get it done. But yeah, exactly what you said. It's got to be, the consistency has to be there. I do feel that this is something that I am hoping, are focused on this week in practice, is that line of scrimmage, making sure the guys are executing the basics properly.
So
and after game, go ahead, Ed.
I was going to say, before we move on to the studs and duds, I'd be remiss if I didn't get an on-the-spot reporter's reaction to learning that you guys come out with your mascot this last game, and somebody mowed him over with the Hellraiser golf cart. What the hell is that all about? I mean,
I got nothing, man.
I see this picture.
There's too much that goes on in Arlington that I cannot defend. Okay, there was too much when we go back to Stoops last year with the pads, and now this. I don't know what to say to that.
The mascot's legs are up in the air, and you see the golf carts bouncing over the top of him, and I'm like, boy, that's an original introduction. I've never seen that before.
So now they have a new official golf cart driver there with an actual license and insurance.
Yeah,
so we're gonna let Gabe listen to your studs and duds, Eric, and when you get done, we'll see if he's got any additions to it. But in the meantime, I mean, we gotta start you off properly here. So here we go. We're starting the segment. Eric's Week 2 studs and duds.
The cream rise to the top. Oh yeah.
Here we go. This week's edition of Studs and Duds. Let's start with the studs. I'm going to start with the quarterbacks, and Gabe will be happy to hear this. Luis Perez. the king
Say
of
it
spring,
right, Eric. Let him say it
Luis
for you.
Perez. Okay.
No.
19 of 27. Yeah.
Okay,
211.
okay, wait a minute. If he's going to be your number one quarterback that you're going to mention, we got to let Gabe
Let Gabe say it.
Gabe
All right.
introduce his number one
Introduce
quarterback.
stud number 1 for me.
King of Spring, Luis Perez, baby. Let's
There you go. There you
19
go.
of 27, 211, 1 touchdown, QBR of 105.6. I mean, it's very clear, you know, when you talk about Perez, Balaj snuck up on everybody week 1. Okay? He did. Now he's clearly going to be a focus. So being a focus that he will be, Perez needs to step up even more and be the guy. So, you know, and this week he was able to do that. Again, as Coach Stoop said, a win is a win, a W is a W, and it doesn't matter. For the second week in a row, Manny Wilkins.
I appreciate that. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Manny Wilkins from the Battlehawks. Again, 12 of 16. 162 yards, 58 on the ground, and 106.8 QBR. And, you know, I've heard some people say things like, you know, well, he didn't throw a touchdown. Well, I don't care. He's putting us in the positions. I mean, he had that deep throw to Jennings down the left side. You know, he's had a couple of those in the games that were huge throws. I don't care if they're passing touchdowns. I don't care if they're rushing touchdowns. I don't care what they are as long as it's points on the board. Manny Wilkins makes a stud list for the second week in a row.
So Eric, can we put that argument to bed? I mean, I've heard so many arguments about, yeah, but is he really a good quarterback? I mean, he hasn't thrown for many touchdowns or any touchdowns, and it's like, hey, when it comes to football, if you got the lead and you're running and it's successful, and I mean, look at their first week was what, 257 yards last week?
273.
Why throw the ball? You're controlling the clock. You're keeping the clock running. You have a lead. Why do you want to throw the football?
You put it in jeopardy. Every time the ball goes in the air, it is in jeopardy. I don't. Maybe people are looking for style points. Maybe people are looking. I don't even care. Okay, as Gabe said, it's all about the W's, baby. And to the tune of 26-9, St. Louis pulled the W this week again, and Manny led the team. I will tell you, and I think Gabe, you said it earlier. You were kind of iffy on St. Louis's quarterback decision.
Yes, I'm a big AJ
Ed.
McCarron guy.
Yeah, as was Ed, and as was I. But in 2 games, does he not look poised? Does he not look like he's in control? Has he looked like at any point in time where it's like, whoa, he looked lost there. Whoa, my God, he looked like he. No, I think guys, and from what we've seen, guys have gotten behind him, and he's the guy. And for all the good things that AJ McCarron did for St. Louis, how many first downs did he ever get by his legs? 1, maybe 2. Manny Wilkins creates that problem for defenses that they have not had with St. Louis the last couple of years. And I'm good with it. You know, you got Sailors, you got Howard, and now you got Wilkins that can get first downs with his legs. Passing touchdowns to me, a bigger stat is, 0 interceptions. Okay. We took care of the football when we're throwing it. I'm over that. You're right, Ed.
Okay, keep
yes. Wide receivers. Deion Kane for Birmingham. 4 receptions, 84 yards, and a tutty.
The man is a beast.
He's a dude. Jonathan Adams for Memphis. I know Memphis lost, but I studs are studs. I don't care if it's a W or an L. 9 receptions, 128 yards. So shout out to Jonathan. My stud on the defensive side of the ball, Bradley, and you can help me out with this, Brett. Is it Anai? Oh, you're on mute, Brett. You're muted, Brett.
Don't disrespect Bradley, please. Yeah, but the man played football at Utah. Okay, no
But
disrespect.
listen, is it an eye? Is it an eye?
Yeah, that's not how I said it, but that's probably exactly correct.
Okay, well,
I mean, I can't say what Gabe says either. So
I tried to find it. So, but he came up with a 2-sack day for Birmingham in a big game against Michigan. I did give 2 offensive lines in total stud recognition this week.
There we go.
After a rough first week, Birmingham follows it up in a big game against Michigan and gave up that many sacks. They kept Matt Corral clean after Magoo exited after the first play. 0 sacks. Second offensive line for the week, Memphis Showboats. 0 sacks. I love that. Big guys don't get recognition. Running backs get the yards. Quarterbacks, but the big guys up front, keeping the sacks, keeping the guys off the quarterbacks, that's what gets it done. And that wraps up the studs. I'm sorry, EJ did not make it on the studs list, Mike.
Hey, he's got a chance to get on there.
He does. And he might be there, but it's just not quite his time yet. Now,
gotta get a W with it.
On to the duds. The first one is going to shock you. Actually, the first 2 are going to shock you. And I left the duds up to quarterbacks this week because we're going to start getting in as we move farther into the season. We're going to start getting into where quarterbacks are going to have to start being the guys, moving the offense, stuff like that. Mike, this is going to shock you because you said earlier in the show that he played really well. I disagree. Bryce Perkins makes my dud list.
Uh-oh.
This is a huge game against Birmingham. Now, he may have made some plays down the stretch or, whatever you want to say. 12 of 23, 132, touchdown and a pick. QB rating is 65.9. That can't be what a quarterback does in a big-time game. It just can't. Real news. You're right, Brett. I'm just saying. Matt Corral wasn't the starter last week. Magoo goes down. Matt Corral comes in, and he's able to lead Birmingham to the win. He didn't quite make the studs list, but he did what he needed to do. Threw a couple picks, which was bad, but he was able to do what he needed to do. Perkins, I know he's new to the UFL, but that's a game he's got to insert himself and be a dude. Second one. Even though they got the win, I'm putting Jordan Ta'amu on the dud list. Can anybody tell me why I might think that Jordan Ta'amu is on the dud list? This would be the second week in a row that Jordan Ta'amu has less than a 50% completion percentage.
Oh.
You're not going to get
in the days of the NFL back in the 70s and the 80s, 50% completion percentage was considered good.
Yeah.
Now, in today's football, 50% ain't going to cut it.
I mean, can we all agree finally that? And I like Jordan Ta'amu. I really do.
I do too. But
He is a game manager at best. Like if that defense is not what they are, he's not taking the team on his back and winning ball games and driving the ball down the field. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. But 12 of 26. Yes, 152. He will hit that occasional deep ball down the field and he gets huge chunks of yards. But 12 of 26. Sorry, Jordan, you made the dud list, I believe, for the second week in a row. And this, I would say,
get off that list, Jordan.
Yeah, this I would say is my biggest dud of the week. Oh boy, Kellen Mond.
Yeah.
Whew. 13 of 27 for 129 coming into the Battle Dome in a huge interconference game and one interception with a QBR of 46.7. Yuck. And I mean, I don't know. Maybe he'll figure it out, but it looks like to me San Antonio's got a lot of problems, and I feel like, yes, Brett, ugly.
Might be a new
Very ugly.
Steve for Studs and Duds segment here.
Well, yes, I got my Vanna down here turning the cards as I'm talking, and I didn't include them on the dud list per se, but I did put a little hyphenate underneath of it. And we've talked about this, so we don't have to go into it. Where is McFarland and Kirkland in the San Antonio offense?
With that said, Eric, we're going on to the next. We're going on to the next segment because you're going to steal all my thunder. We're sliding right in.
Eric, that was great research.
I work hard on
that stat on the 50% team.
No, shut up, Eric. Don't say another word because we are going in.
I'm going to mute.
We are going into Ed's Game Changers. And I'm going to get this out of the way right off the bat because I don't want Eric to say another word.
Muting.
You know, Eric told me before the show started, I'm not going to say anything about McFarland. He's going to leave that for me, and he just can't help himself. But all I'm going to say for Game Changers is that San Antonio and St. Louis, I'm only going to talk about 2 games to get us back on track. San Antonio, game changer is simple. Anthony McFarland is underutilized, period. Last year, when you look at San Antonio, when they were in towards the end of last season, he was hurt, so he missed some time there. But by the time they got to the XFL championship playoff game and then on to the UFL championship game, that guy was a stud. And I mentioned to Eric Saturday when we did our Battlehawk talk that the guy from San Antonio that alarmed me the most was Anthony McFarland because he is a big play guy. And what do you do with big play guys? You got to feed them the rock because the more you give them the ball, the more likely they're going to hit a big one. So through 2 games this season, he's had a total of 9 touches for 87 yards. So he's averaged 9.7 yards a carry on just 9 touches the first 2 weeks. So you're going to tell me that if you don't put his ball in his hands for 15 to 20 times a game, that he's not going to pop that 60-yarder? He's not going to pop that 70-yarder? How can you have a playmaker that you do not utilize? I don't understand it. Gabe, what's your thoughts on McFarland?
I agree. Like the kind of player that he is. At this point, does it become about coaching? You know what I mean? But when we look at the first week against Arlington, I mean, let's be real. Like once the minute, the way we looked with Arlington in that first half, and then we had the Battlehawks. Like you take that running back out of the game early. The problem is they're not using him early enough. You have to control that clock. You want to keep that score down, then get McFarland involved heavily early on. I agree with you, Ed. I think he is being underused, and it's crazy to say this for a Wade Phillips staff that I blame coaching. That's all I can say. He is your playmaker, especially when you've got a change of quarterback. This has to be the dude that's getting it done because Kirkland isn't going to get it done with a new quarterback until that run game starts opening it up a little bit.
So the combination of underutilizing McFarland, the play of Kellen Mond, and the offensive coordinator, AJ, stepping away today, there is trouble in San Antonio.
What do you guys feel about – sorry, but I also got to look at San Antonio's defense. They haven't helped the run game any either.
The problem is, Gabe, is that when you have an inept offense, your defense is out there a long time.
That's why you get
half rolls around, they're tired, man. I mean, They've been on the field a long time.
Like, I don't care. I'm giving McFarland the ball first down, second down, getting them into like a 3rd and 3, and I'm going to give them the ball again. If we got to go for it on 4th down, I'm going to do it again. You know what I mean? And that's how you keep your defense off the field. So if Kellen Mond isn't getting it done, then at what point do they start looking elsewhere? But I still think it's got to go running back heavy for them.
It's clear San Antonio's defense is not the same either. Like Ed is saying, they're out there all the time. Here's what I didn't see on Sunday. I didn't see a defense that looked so much faster than the guys they were playing against like I did last year.
Yeah.
I didn't see gang tackling, 4 guys at the ball, 5 guys at the ball. I mean, it looked like the last 4 games of the season with San Antonio looked like they were playing with 17 guys on defense. It just seemed like there was always 4 or 5 guys on the ball. I haven't seen that these first couple games. So I don't know what's going on. I mean, I know they lost some pieces, but I mean, they've got the linebacking core back. They're still strong up front, but things look like they are just, I mean, holy buckets. I don't know what to say about San Antonio.
Yeah, and in an 8-team league, every single game literally counts. So they're already on an uphill climb right now. Yeah.
So the second game I'm going to cover, and I might have to mute Mike on this because I've got 3 different times of the game that I want to cover. The second game, my game changer plays is Birmingham at Michigan. Okay. First quarter. Dawkins. What are you doing, man? I guess just playing defense for a reason, because if you can't catch the ball, they put you on defense. But in the first quarter, Michigan had a pick 6 that got away with a drop ball.
Here, take it. Take it.
So Michigan gets out to a lead in the first quarter if that happens. That can be a game changer. Second one, 6-minute mark in the third quarter. Michigan has 4th and goal at the 2-yard line. What do they run? The very play that I spent 15 minutes on the show with Chuck Long discussing, the nothing burger play. 4th and 2, handing the ball up straight up the middle and expecting to score on that play. What the hell kind of play calling is that? That you got to be better than that. You got to be better than that on a 4th and 2. Third play, Michigan scores a TD in the 4th quarter. They get the 3-point conversion after Birmingham's called with roughing the passer. They get the ball back, and at the 6:20 mark in the 4th quarter, there's a 4th and 2 at midfield. And they choose to punt the ball away with 6 minutes left to go in the game. Now, that's where I say you've got the NFL mentality in your head, because you can punt the ball, you can coffin corner it, try and pin them deep. In the UFL, that doesn't work. They're all about promoting the returns. So the punter can't coffin corner it. He can't even kick it in the end zone. So what happens? Birmingham gets the ball. I think they ran it out to like the 25-yard line with the return. So you didn't go for it on 4th and 2. You give the ball back to the other team that starts at the 25-yard line. Worst case scenario, they go 3 and out. They're able to punt the ball. They're pinning you way back in your territory. So that's exactly what happens, and they get the ball back with 2 minutes left, but you're giving away 4 minutes of the game, basically to end up with a starting field position that's worse than what you would have been if you went for it at midfield on 4th and 2.
But Ed, you're missing it. They only had the run up the middle installed for short yardage. So they didn't make it on the goal line, so they weren't going to do it at the 50-yard line. So
when you talk about games that, it was easy to say Birmingham controlled that game. You can say that about a lot of games. One-sided, that you say, oh, that team completely controlled that game. But here's 3 plays. 3 plays in a game that if they are handled differently, completely change the look of the game.
Well said.
Yep.
Yeah. Well said.
Absolutely change the output of that game in 3 plays. So, Mike, I'm gonna, now that I didn't mute you. I just threatened you.
Nope,
So
I
you
just,
can
you know, I
stay
gave you
quiet,
the
so
floor.
that's good. But now that I've went through those 3 plays, give me a Michigan perspective that makes sense for the way those, you can't control, obviously, the dropped pick 6.
Right. I did see that was, you could feel it in the building. You could feel it. They're just watching the players. You see, like, they knew how big of a deal that was. Ford Field was like, oh, like what, what a big play that could, it's what could have been. A lot of this game was what could have been, should things gone differently. And when you think about the goal line situation too, you hear, shortest way is the end to the end zone is straight up the middle, right? So, that's, honestly, and I was up in the press box and said, well, man, that's what, probably what a lot of Seattle Seahawks fans wish they did in the Super Bowl was hand up the middle 3 times.
Yeah, they had Marshawn Lynch though.
that was the first thing that looked in my head. It's like, hey, just keep it on the ground. But that's just, I give, credit to, Birmingham's got a solid defensive front too. So, and again, going back to what we said earlier in the show, maybe this, the offensive line, maybe better O-line help would improve that. But I totally understand the punt situation there too. With the rules, maybe they gotta, and this happened last year too, earlier in the season too, where with the whole the points situation where with Nolan, and the whole different nothing. It was just, kind of have a little reminder of, yeah, this isn't going to be like NFL rules, and some of these NFL coaches in the league, they kind of slip up. I want to say slip up, but just they catch themselves in the situation with, because they're so used to the NFL rules. In UFL, they have these different rules to make it unique. With giving the returner the benefit of this play. And punts being so important in the game, if not the most important play in a football game. Maybe they'll go back, hopefully they go back to the drawing board. Coach Jerron Fairman is the wide receiver coach and special teams coordinator. So maybe, make some adjustments. It's still, again, early in the season. Hopefully it's something they can correct and have a better situational awareness moving forward.
So, having said all that, that's gonna conclude the Game Changers segment because we got to move on. We're getting like woefully behind. Brett,
Brett,
I'm going to turn you over to the next segment quick before we go into the game previews, and we've got our next guest sitting backstage as well. So I'm going to let you comment quick on. You wanted to talk a little bit about TV ratings and attendance, so.
Well, my main thing with the TV ratings is, we do a lot of talking, a lot of communicating with, super fans from all over the league, co-workers and all that. And we keep getting compared to, XFL 2020 on the TV ratings. But I'm going to be honest with you. I don't see how that works right now because there's so many more people. And this is what I brought up to on X earlier. So many more people stream now than have cable. Out of probably 50 people I talked to, I think there's 4 of us that still have cable. And my question was, I reached out to Mike Mitchell. I reached out to Zach with Newsroom. Spoke with Bill Alexander today with the Yacht Club and brought up this point along with some other people. And from what I am told, the networks themselves, like, Fox and ABC and all that, they have access to the streaming numbers. Like, this is our numbers from this weekend. Not great, but improved from the weekend before. But there again, how many more people are now streaming than what was, 5 years ago? I know it's a ton. I don't know the percentages. I tried to look that up earlier today. But if the networks actually have, access to these numbers, I wonder why it's never released, whether it be the NFL, NHL, NBA, or the UFL. It makes me real curious with streaming numbers. Did we hit 1 million this weekend? You know what I mean? I know the high point on a couple of these games was 800,000-900,000. So I wonder moving forward, you know, Nielsen and all these companies, are they going to give the fans access to these numbers? Because when you're talking sponsors and advertisers and all these people that's wanting to advertise their product, you know, that you're going after during your games, well, they want to see real numbers. And we all know from this does not include streaming numbers. So that's a question I've had for quite a while now, which makes me wonder, you know, are we doing better than what we think we are when it comes to viewership? Because, Lord, at the ratio that I know, if it's 5-1 streaming to you know, cable, what people watching on cable, well, hell, are we hitting 2 million a game with streaming? You know, that's something I would love for someone to get with, you know, Moose or Russ Brandon or the, you know, the PR department and see if they would be interested in entertaining that question. And that's really all I had.
So what's your initial thoughts when you see these attendance numbers? Because I know as we talk about it, you know, we're trying to come full circle and start putting butts in the seats too. It's got to be more than viewers. So,
well, I've got, you know, quite a few ideas, and I always go back to XFL 2020 because I think all of us diehard spring football fans, if we don't have a bias, you know, so much, and I'm talking about modern day, I'm not talking about the USFL from the 80s. XFL, you know, 2020 was GOAT. How they marketed, how they did the team reveals. Man, each team had their songs. I mean, like the logo. Whoever did Russ, Moose, Danny, Redbird, Fox.
Why did it take?
Don't take this damn logo away again. That was the best thing y'all done all season was bring this logo back.
You know, it's funny that they finally listened to the fans, right? They listened to the fans because it wasn't just Renegades fans calling for that.
No.
It was y'all. It was fans of the league. So if they would listen to the fans a little bit more like this, you know, I mean, we know we are the hardcores here, but we know that we need the casual dollars.
Right.
We know we need the casual viewers. We know who those casual people are because we also watch NFL football with them. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think on the attendance, really, I talked to Ed about this earlier. Look, I understand the league needs to make money and they need to stir up revenue. I get that, but I think they've done a really good job of crawling before they run on just about everything except for this. Whether they like it or not, we're brand new.
Not the best logo.
Yeah, that's the best logo.
I mean, come on.
I love it.
Well,
yeah.
But we've got to get. I feel like, and I want to mention this and then move on because I know we got a lot of other stuff to go. But Ed brought up the attendance, and I saw a post, and you know, Jason Ganella was over the ticket team. You can't go from one season with the league and having, you know, $10 tickets, $25, and then charging so much more for season tickets, and then scrambling at the last second and giving people the same seats for $10 or $25. I feel like they need to go back completely to the $10 ticket, to the $25 ticket. And now on the premium seats, we've got some premium deals that are protected that includes all the drink and food you want to eat. And it's really fantastic. But I think we need to do the $10 tickets, $25 tickets. Kids under a certain age get in for free. And they need to budget it, whether it's going to take 2 more years, 3 more years, 4 more years to build these fan bases up and then gradually go up. I felt like they went too high on their ticket prices from the jump. And I still say, and I like I told Ed earlier, I'm going to die on this hill, and I hope I'm dead gone and the league is still going. But start the damn season right after the damn Super Bowl when everybody's still thinking about football. Don't wait 6, 7, 8 weeks and then wonder when it's 90 and 100 degrees down here. Well, why is attendance like this in Memphis? Well, why is it this way in Houston? Well, what's going on with Birmingham? They're winning. We're not going to sit there in 100-degree weather, guys. We're not going to do it. And I've yelled at the mountaintops over this.
So I have the luxury sitting here in the catbird seat.
If you listen to me, the attendance will go up 25% next year. Just saying. Just saying.
I have the luxury of sitting in the catbird seat, and part of the luxury I have is I get to see my guests in the backstage, and I get to see their reactions to what's being said on the live show.
Uh-oh.
So I'm going to bring this guy on because, number one, there was big news in the league today with, of course, with DC losing their defensive coordinator. So I want to get his initial response. But he also looked like he was really in tune, Brett, with what you were saying. Now, whether he agreed or disagreed, that's another point. But let's bring him on, and we'll get his initial thoughts. Alex Allman.
What's up, man?
Alex, how are you doing?
Alex, welcome back.
What's up, bud?
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes, you're doing great. So initially, let's start off. Let's get your initial thoughts on what we heard from Williams moving on today.
Yeah, that was honestly, I saw a lot of the comments on X, and you kind of get it. I mean, if you think about it, getting an opportunity to be a coordinator in college football, it's a little bit more stability where he is in his career, getting back into the college game, full-time job. Totally get it. Timing stinks for DC, but from a program standpoint at Tennessee State, they want their coaches intact. They want to, they've got spring ball, that they're moving into. There's the recruiting and starting to build those connections, activity in the transfer portal. Timing stinks for us, but congratulations to Coach Williams. I completely understand the move. Not to get too far into the preview, but his son's taken over as defense coordinator, and he was a coordinator in the NFL with St. Louis for a year. He's an NFL coach with 14, 15 years experience in the NFL. So while the timing isn't ideal, and I'll be curious to see how the team reacts because it's a lot of disruption. It's not like they got me out there dialing up the defense. They got a guy that knows what's going on. So.
And let's face it, who's had more disruption than DC this year?
That's true.
I mean, holy buckets.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Next man up.
So let's start off, and I'm just gonna leave Alex up here since he's he's gracious enough to join us this late at night, especially on the East Coast.
Right.
So
I wanted to hang out with Brett anyway. So
nobody says that with a straight face, Alex.
Well, the only thing I'm gonna ask Alex, the only thing I'll ask Alex before we move on, because I saw his reaction, I wanted to know whether it was an hallelujah or whether it was you are wrong.
I didn't know you could see me, first of all. But,
Alex is back in the background like this.
I have a slightly different take. I understand where Brett's coming from, and I certainly get it because the weather does get bad down there. But I think they start too soon. I think the exact opposite. I think you need to clear March Madness. I think the old USFL in the 80s had it right. They would start in and around right after April, and they had the April all for football, and they had the summer for football. I think one of the reasons that we probably see this slow crawl into the year is, there were a lot of people watching basketball games that aren't watching UFL. They're dialed in on other things. I also think that if you have the Super Bowl, and I hear you, Brett, people, you're saying just keep it going. I got it. But I think there's some fatigue when you look at when college football starts now at the beginning and then the Super Bowl now running into February, right? I like that washout period. You have 6-8 weeks. Let's build some hype. Let's promote the league in between. Let's give fans a chance to catch their breath a little bit. And then those guys down south just going to have to get tough and handle that hot weather and sit out there into the middle of the summer.
Hey, I'm going to tell you like I told another guy from up north the other day, bring your butt down here. and sit with me about May or June, not in the shade. There ain't gonna be no shade, and we'll revisit this. Now, I don't have a problem with it.
I gotta agree, Brett. That Texas heat, either down in Arlington during the summer, no thank you.
It's a different kind of heat, and
It is.
I'm sorry, Mike wanted to argue this with me the other day, and he brought up 80 degrees, and if I could have came through the phone on him, it would have been all over with. You got 100, 105 degrees down here with a heat index and metal and concrete seats, and people want to talk about we need to toughen up.
Brett.
Woo!
It's a dry heat.
It's
a dry heat.
Not down here, it's not.
No, I certainly get it because, like, you know.
You don't.
Yeah, well, I did spend a lot of time.
Alex also looks like he's in a little better shape than you are, Brett, too.
Yes, he is.
I'm not going to go there. But I can remember waking up early, being in Columbia, down in South Carolina, and you're right, the humidity's bad. You'd have to get your run in really, really early if you're going to get it in because it would be painful. So I hear you, but you know, I grew up in Virginia. Let me, you know, and in Central Virginia, it's hot and humid, and it's pretty bad too. And I understand it's bad where you guys are. I get it; it's a bad situation, but you know, maybe all the night games then for the Southern teams, you kick off at 8:00. I know it's still going to be miserable. But it'd be less miserable. At least you're in the sun's down and whatnot. I just think the competition with March Madness is very hard to overcome. Humidity is worse. Yeah, I hear you, brother. I'm with you. Hot down there too. We have family down in Tampa, but and it is hot. But I just think that washout period helps us. I think we compete too much early. If we bump it up too far, plus, and here's the flip side of it. You can call me a wuss. It's cold as hell up here in February. You know, you think they're going to draw at DC, and there's going to be a lot of beer in that beer.
Put some clothes on. Put some clothes on.
Chopping off toes from frostbite up here. It's miserable.
No, Alex, I am glad you brought up the night game thing because that, you know, I've been in mooses here about that too. I'm like, look, if we're going to keep on starting this late, you know, end of March, mid-April, we got three right now with 8 teams. We've got 3 stadiums with domes. They need to be everyday game. And, you know, Birmingham and Memphis and Arlington and Houston shouldn't play a day game unless it's absolutely, you know, necessary. Look at some of the schedule right now, and they've got it reversed, you know, coming in May. And they're playing the same day, but you've got dome teams playing at night and Birmingham and these other places playing during the day. It makes the scheduling makes no sense.
Yeah.
I think with expansion, you may have a little bit more of, you know, we see multiple, you know, more night games, you know, with more teams with the expansion. So that's gonna be
we're almost already an hour behind with Gabe, and Gabe
still gotta pick the games.
Gabe probably wants to get going, so let's get to our game previews because the big Friday night game,
huge.
The big Friday night game is big for both teams.
It's big.
Will Arlington go to 3-0 and stay atop the XFL division, or is Birmingham going to start hitting their stride and leave them both at 2-1? Which one of you guys? I mean, I'm not going to stand in the way of you two. You battle it out. So, which one of you want to go first?
I'll go first just because I talk too much anyway, so I got to get it out. So, Brett, I got to be honest, man. I'm not fooled by the 1-1. I think the Stallions are just they're going to be the Stallions again. I think there's just too much there from coaching. The main players they got, we saw for all the mistakes that Corral can make, we saw what the change at quarterback did for them. Just because he's more familiar with this, McGrew was out too long, and now I think he's going to be out for a little bit now from what I saw today. So I am cautiously optimistic. I'm not coming on here like guaranteeing victory like I did last year, and then I ended up with my foot in my mouth all season long. But I really feel like if Arlington's defense and run game, which are the two things that I really needed to see perform going in these first 2 weeks, can continue, we know Luis Perez is going to be able to feed off of that. I really do believe that the Renegades have an opportunity. When you look at everything on paper through 2 games, I mean, obviously, Renegades, the way they stack up on paper, this is one that you should, that any casual who doesn't watch the games, they're going to turn around and say, oh, Renegades are going to be the better team. They're going to win this game. You know, being number 2 offense, number 2 in the run game, number 2 ranked defense so far. And then you look at the Stallions, and they're ranked down at number 7, you know, offensively. They're ranked, down at number 6 defensively. But I'm not fooled, Brett. I'm not fooled because there was a guy that we talked about earlier named Deon Cain. And I really think that this guy is one of those, was it Eric or what do you guys, it might have been you, Ed, that said the game changer. And I'm looking at Arlington's secondary, who looks really good for the first 2 weeks, but they have not yet played a guy who I believe Deon Cain, in my opinion, is possibly the best receiver in this league. And if this guy going into 3 weeks now, the Stallions are going to start getting more comfortable, y'all. Just mark my words. And this is really that pivot game for both teams, even though they are in different conferences, because I really feel like, at least in my opinion, I think that this is a more important game for Arlington on a couple of fronts because of the fact that Arlington right now, like I said earlier, there are 3 teams that are unbeaten in this league right now, and all 3 of them are in one conference. So we know what's going on Sunday night. So after this weekend, there can either be 1 unbeaten or there will be 2. Arlington's going to have to keep pace, and they got to do it by going. I mean, is Birmingham going to be that constant thorn in their side from here on out? We're going to find out. They really have got the tools. I think they've got the coaching. They made the changes that they needed to in the offseason for a game like this. And it's not the first game. By week 3, like I said earlier, this is where the real teams start coming together, where you start seeing who the fakes are. Arlington has to prove on the road in prime time. This is going to be a big stage. I mean, it's perfect for ratings. It's set up for ratings. They're going to have to get it done in a tough situation against a team, the defending champions, who I believe are capable of reaching that peak again. But I do think the Renegades, at least on paper, they are game. They are game to win. They are up for this game. It's going to be interesting to see, though, considering that now they go on the road. So I really feel that the Renegades can get it done. I think they will get it done. I think it's going to be a close game, but it will not surprise me. And I would hate to see that this secondary that I am so proud of just get worked by Deon Cain, but it would not surprise me if that happens.
So, Brett?
Man, I really think it's going to be a battle of 2 playoff teams. I said it before the season. I was really high on Arlington. I think I can't wait. I think it's going to be a really good game. It could really help propel the league for the rest of the season. Try to get some new eyes on the screens, watching and all that good stuff. I've got Birmingham in a very close game. I don't think we'll cover. I think the spread's 4.5 right now. I call it a field goal game. But now Arlington could absolutely go into Birmingham and win that game. I'm thinking, 20-17. Maybe not a conventional score like that with the extra points that we do in the UFL, but it's going to be a hard-hitting physical battle. And Skip Holtz and Bob Stoops and these 2 coaching staffs, I mean, if you're a real football fan, you'll watch this game. It's going to be pretty daggum good, and could be a championship preview. I know that right now the XFL conference is real stacked, but you never know.
I really feel like this is the game where if the Renegades win, I feel like Luis Perez can really have a big game. I mean, we're looking at, right now the Stallions are giving up 171 yards a game. Arlington is averaging 181 pass yards a game. And we haven't even seen Luis have to throw the ball the way that he was doing it last year, now that he's got a run game and a defense to help him out. But if they are going to win, I do believe that it is going to have to be on his arm. I think the Stallions know that run game has been helping them. They're going to say, we got to take that away.
Birmingham's going to have to play better, but they've got to continue to improve, or they very easily will lose Friday night.
Yeah.
So Gabe, did you take Arlington in this one?
I am taking Arlington. I agree with Brett, the fact that I think it's going to be, I mean, I'm talking anywhere from 1 to 3 points max. I think this is one of those games that's going to come down to the final possession. And it could come down to a kicker. You know, who knows? But I really do feel like these two teams, this is to me right here, this is where the real UFL season begins, is this Friday night. 3 weeks in, all teams are kind of getting the feel for everything now. They have the feel. Let's go. You got the defending champions. You got a 2-0 Arlington Renegades with the best passing quarterback in the league, Luis Perez, baby. Yeah, I think we're ready, baby. We're ready. I'm hyped.
So, Alex, I'm going to give you a chip. Before we let Gabe go, I'm going to let you weigh in on this game since we went so late, and we apologize for that. But
that's okay.
What are you seeing for this game?
I like what I've seen from Arlington so far. You know, they do have Perez. Perez has a running game. You know, I a little sluggish this past weekend on offense a bit, but the defense kept them in. I'd like to see him get Luwan Winningham involved a little more. I think he's an unbelievable talent, and this is going into the second year in a row. I think they've sort of underutilized Luwan a bit. I have a hard time picking against Birmingham at home, even with, you know, Corral and then cook us in with
they just signed another quarterback too.
What's
Birmingham.
that?
Birmingham signed another quarterback today.
Yeah, I saw that. The guy from oh shucks, I literally just saw it before I came on.
New York Jets.
From the Jets. That's right. But I have a hard time picking against Birmingham at home. Birmingham's defense is pretty stout. I mean, I think that's going to be the difference in the game. I'm going to give Birmingham a slight edge. I wouldn't be surprised at all, though, if Arlington wins this game, to be honest with you. And that's no disrespect to Birmingham. I think Arlington's pretty good. If you go back and look at last year, you guys were a lot better than that record. I mean, if there was it kind of reminded me of the Maulers from 2023 team I covered.
Yeah.
Found ways to lose. You know, I mean, just like literally any way you could possibly lose a game.
Yeah.
So,
Alex, going back to real quick, you talk about that DC game last year where y'all came back. Tell me you did not think y'all were dead in the water in that game. I mean, it looked over by, you know, and then all of a sudden Arlington, like you said, they found a way to just say, nah, we're good. We don't need them.
Yeah. Caught a break.
Yeah.
Caught a break.
But you're right. That went like that all season.
Well, we won't get too far ahead of ourselves, but I'll tell you, Arlington's had DC. They had Greg Williams' number. I think they just scored again on us. We every time we've played Arlington, we haven't been able to stop them. So maybe his son's got it figured out.
Do you guys feel real quick before I go? I know, but just with Brett and then now Alex, we're talking about this game, and I talked about Arlington, how them really needing this more. Would you agree with me in saying that when you look at the USFL, if Birmingham loses this game, regardless of what happens with Michigan this weekend, Birmingham's not out of it even at 1-2. All they got to do is win that conference. Whereas for the Renegades, when you got that division the way it is right now, one loss this early could really do some damage.
Yeah, it could. And conversely, they get the win. You know, I'd say whoever goes 3-0 this week is going to be sitting pretty in the XFL conference. And I think Birmingham and Michigan are still the teams to beat in the USFL conference. I mean, I think Memphis is going to continue to get better. I think Houston's kind of still a train wreck to me. I mean, they played pretty well, you know, defensively this past weekend against you guys, but they do some things. I just scratch my head. But I think this weekend's going to be. So there will be a couple teams feeling really good about themselves.
Yeah.
So with that, Gabe, I will tell you that the whole bottom line crew has taken Birmingham in this game. So I hope we're not bursting your bubble. But
hey, man, hey, you know, we're renegades. We're loners. That's all right. I'll be that renegade. You see that? That's me right there. Where am I? Right there. That's me. I mean, I'm not holding the gun, but you know.
Well, it sounds like
the bandit logo right there, baby. That's what I'm talking about. I will be the loner, but you know what? That's okay because that's why we do this, right? And like you guys say, it's going to. We're expecting a close game now. Granted, we expected a close game last year, but Arlington went on to have a season that none of us really expected they would. I really do think that now with the additions, that this game is now more primed to live up to what we were hoping it would be last year.
Well, Gabe, you'll get a kick out of this. My daughter's a big Renegades fan, so we went down to DC last year, and she was pulling for the Renegades and got a chance to meet some of the players and the parents of the Renegades. I was doing the DC Defender show last year on UFM. She can't stand the Defenders. She's a Renegades fan all the way. So I've got you guys are all over.
You know what? You know what though? That means you're a good father. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Okay? That's all I'm saying.
She's still sleeping out in the car, but
So, Gabe, before we let you go, why don't you let everybody know where we can find you? And we sure appreciate you coming on again tonight.
Well, first of all, thank you guys. Thank each and every one of you, man, for welcoming me onto the show. Always fun talking football, man. Especially I had a rough day at work, so I was really looking forward to this because this is my release. You know what I'm saying? So thank you guys, man. I appreciate you guys. I am everywhere. You can find me on Facebook, Gridiron Nation Podcast / Hellraisers Podcast. I am also on X. My handle there is @1 Gridiron Nation Podcast / Hellraisers. I am also on the new version of X, I guess, the new Twitter, Blue Sky, under Gridiron Nation Podcast / Hellraisers. Also on TikTok with the exact same. Where else? I am on Instagram. Just look up G_Garcia_Gridiron. I'm doing everything, talking Hellraisers, talking Renegades, UFL, NFL. I talk movies and music too if I want to, man. It's just fun like that. But I am everywhere, guys, man. And so you guys can find me everywhere and being loud, just being my normal self, man, and having fun with it. I like to trash talk like everybody does, but in the end, it's all out of respect and it's all out of the mutual love that we got for this game, man. And every single one of you, I love talking football with people who know what they are talking about, from the X's and O's to the trash talk.
You got to hear on the bottom line,
man. You know what I'm saying? So, hey, it's one love to each and every one of you guys, man. Thank you guys.
Yeah,
Take care, buddy.
This won't be the last time. We'll see you again soon.
No, we'll see you again. Hey, Brett, may the best team win, at least at this point this season. All right.
Good luck, man.
Thanks, Gabe.
See you, Gabe.
So, man, I tell you what, we are so woefully behind tonight. Jesus,
Overtime.
We got a lot of people that like to talk. So, these
Talking
next
football.
two games, we got to kind of like do a real condensed version. And I hate to say that, Mike, because we're talking. One of those games is Michigan, and I'm sure you was all dead set on what you were going to say. But maybe we just say a quick, brief synopsis of the next game on the docket, which is Houston at Memphis. And like I said, I'm going down to Memphis Saturday for that game, supporting the league, and I'll be in the press box. So I really do look for Memphis to get off the snide in this game, and I think they're going to get their first victory of the year. So I am taking Memphis. Eric?
I am also taking the home team. I am taking the Memphis Showboats to get off the schneid. I don't think Houston has it quite figured out yet.
Brett?
Taking Memphis. Walking in Memphis, baby.
I doubt I'll get to Beale Street this time around, but it's definitely coming on Mother's Day weekend when St. Louis goes to Memphis. So what do you got, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, based on what Memphis had DC on the ropes. I think they're gonna find some momentum here, find something to hang their head on. And I think this is a game where you can get that first win. We saw in the press conference, Whisenhunt's back in full swing of things, very confident in his team. They're at home, and I think it's gonna be, I think a lot of fans are excited. And I think we should have hopefully some fans tune in. Hey, go to the game, check out this team. They're a really gritty team from what I've seen so far. I'll give them the nod this week. I think they'll unfortunately it has to come at the expense of Houston because they're fighting tooth and nail to get theirs themselves, but I think they may have to wait another week. So give me Memphis here.
Alex, how about you?
Give me the Memphis Maulers with Coach Horton, ex-Mauler defense coordinator, all those Maulers on defense. My boy Matt Mingle punting for Memphis. They get their first win.
Boogie on the defensive line too, so he's
boogeyman.
around.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Next
Oh, and Isaiah
game,
Green May, he's another one that we interviewed back when we did Hammer Time, and he's a stud. Keep an eye on him. 45 for the Showboats. Dude's a baller, freak athlete.
So the next game, San Antonio is 0-2. They go into Michigan. San
I can pick us
Antonio.
off here if you.
San
you know.
Antonio is 4.5-point underdogs, and they get the bad news today that AJ is stepping down as offensive coordinator. So they're, I guess, when it rains, it pours when it comes to this team right now. So, I took Michigan. I just don't see. San Antonio hasn't given me any reason to believe that they're about ready to turn the corner. So I just think that, I said with the schedule that they had, especially losing one of their home games this year, they really needed to start the first 6 games off 3-3 to have any chance to contend for the playoffs. And I'm not so sure they won't be 0-3 after the first 3 weeks. So I'm taking Michigan in this game.
Yeah, I've got Michigan for very similar reasons. San Antonio, man, I hate to say this after being in the UFL championship last year, but San Antonio this year feels like the New York Jets to me. I mean, it's just things have just completely fallen apart for them. Call it the Kellen Mond experiment through 2 weeks is not looking good. AJ Smith bails. We don't know why. It isn't like he had a college job lined up that we're aware of. So, I mean, yeah, I would take Michigan, and I would give the points. I have zero problem with that.
Give the ball to McFarland.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, my God. Give the ball to McFarland. If you haven't learned anything else, the new offensive coordinator that comes in for San Antonio, give the ball to McFarland at least 15 touches at least. I mean,
And run him into the teeth of that Michigan defense? I don't know.
I tell you what, if you need speed that can get around the Michigan defense, McFarland's your guy.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brett.
Michigan in a great close game. It's going to be a very entertaining weekend. A lot of close. I think all 4 of these games could end up 3-4 point games.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Alex?
I mean, I think.
Oh,
yeah.
Go ahead, Alex.
Yep.
We'll set Mike up the last one. We got to cut it. We got to be able to cut him off.
Yeah.
I like Michigan. I'll be honest. I'd like to see him stop screwing around at quarterback and just go with Perkins and let him go, and let's see what happens there. My personal opinion, but I think it's going to be. I think Michigan's going to win. San Antonio to me has looked like a train wreck. They're they're right down there with looking like Houston to me. I mean, I see nothing there. I don't know what happened.
Yeah,
but Michigan.
Mike.
Yeah, too much going on with San Antonio right now to really I think a lot of distractions. I wouldn't say distractions, but just a lot to overcome right now for them. Good news is it was fairly at the beginning of the week, but they still got a couple practices in. But Michigan's going to go right back to being Michigan football. It's going to be running and grinding it out. Defense, then all the correction things, but you're also going to be in Ford Field, which being there 10, it's the most they had the most so far in Ford Field, 10,000. Expected to be a little more than that, and with 10,000 plus, it can get pretty loud in there. So when you talk about new coordinator, new system, new play calling, and you're gonna have the fans, there might be some false starts in this game that may move the Brahma's offense back here. So just watch for the crowd noise. It gets loud in there. But yeah, Michigan I think should take this one, and I think they'll take the points as well.
Okay.
Mike, are you able to deal with that brutal heat in the dome? Are you okay?
Oh yeah. I get by. Now I do a lot of running around in that dome. So I'm going up. From before I go up to the press level down to the seat level. I did my fair share of running around. I got my steps in, and I had a big old jacket on too. And it's it's getting a little toasty in here, but nonetheless, yeah. I mean, I survive.
I'm glad.
So that brings us to the feature game of the week.
Featured.
The feature game of the
boy.
week.
Boxing gloves on.
One of these teams is coming out 3-0. And really being in a catbird seat for the early in the season. DC 2-0 at St. Louis, who's 2-0. St. Louis. It started out the week, St. Louis is 5.5-point favorites. It has now moved to 6.5-point favorites. So it looks like the money so far, at least, is going on St. Louis. Alex, what's your initial thoughts on this game?
I'd like to come in here and talk trash, but I don't want to lose all credibility. When you look at the season so far, I think St. Louis has been extremely impressive. Now, conversely, you guys haven't beaten anybody yet, really. I mean, I think San Antonio is shown to be pretty bad, and I think Houston's probably pretty bad. So I think, at least we can put the Birmingham, win behind us, and Memphis is, better than you think. So I think our level of competition may be slightly better. I think it's going to be, but if you look at us statistically, some things really jump out at me. So defensively, we still give up about 5 yards a rush, and we're giving up over 100 yards a game on the ground. Same problem we had last year. Can't stop the run. Against the numbers that, St. Louis has 3 of the top 5 rushers in the UFL. Your rushing game has just been just an unbelievable meat grinder. I think that's the difference in the game. If we can hold our own and stop the run, minimize big plays, we've got a chance to keep it close. The other thing that really jumped out at me too is that, if you look statistically, we're dead even, almost like total yards given up, total yards gained. But I think we've been opportunistic. I think when the defense had to make stops, they've made stops, kind of like this bend but don't break type of thing. Jordan his completion percentage is under 50%, which is just, for a professional quarterback, that's awful. But when we've needed that 3rd and 16 conversion or the big throw to Roland, he's got it. He's made the play, or the pop pass. That we have been extremely opportunistic in terms of making plays when we have to. But if you look at us on paper, we're a pretty mediocre 2-0 team. So that said, that's honestly where I'm coming from with this. Anything can happen, no doubt about it. But I'd be shocked if either team blows ACAT. What's happening? I'd be shocked if either team. I want a rock fight. If we can turn this game into a rock fight, I want like an 11-9 or 13-9, just slugfest. That's going to be our best chance at winning the football game.
I can agree. I can agree with that. I mean, I think, when I looked at this game, I always compare it. I see similarities in the defense. I think St. Louis is a little bit better against the run. But I see a lot of similarities defensively. Where I am coming from is, offensively, at least right now. And again, one game could change total perception. Offensively, St. Louis looks to be, again, through 2 games, looks to be, the class offensively. And so when I look at this game and I look at the defense, I look at the offenses, that's where I'm giving the nod that St. Louis, to me, has a better chance of overcoming DC's defense as opposed to DC's offense overcoming St. Louis's defense. Now, we could be back here next week talking the exact opposite, but that's just how I broke this game down. So, I mean, I'm taking St. Louis just based on that.
Yeah. And to be honest, I think that's a solid pick because, again, when you look at St. Louis's run game has been unbelievable, and DC struggled to stop the run. We struggled to stop the run last year. So something has to happen there.
Yeah.
Something's got to give. I think it's their strength against our weakness, how we can handle that. But, I mean, I think the other thing, too, and I think I heard you guys talking earlier when I was watching on X, the quarterback for a couple things to look out for. St. Louis is doing a good job of using their running backs out of the backfield as targets. So they're throwing the ball, they're spreading the ball around, that West Coast type of concept. But the quarterback gives an extra dimension. The fact that he's able to run the football. And, Brett, you remember against Birmingham, you guys tore us up with Magoo we were not disciplined sometimes in the rush lanes, and he would get loose in 15 yards and 18 yards. I think we're going to have to minimize that this week too. I think the quarterback could hurt us, especially if we get crazy, bringing heat and we get out of our rush lanes. He can tuck it and go. So a lot to defend.
Well, one thing that come out this week that's, that helps DC, especially stopping our running game, is Abdul Beecham, who we just interviewed this last weekend on Battlehawk Talk. He is injured. He's going to be out for probably at least, they're saying 1 to 2 weeks. And he's their right offensive guard, but he's like 312 pounds, and he's really been having a good season. So they're definitely going to miss him in the run game. So we'll find out. We'll find out with the, as Coach Beck always says, next man up.
Yeah. We'll
find out the depth of the line and see if they're able to overcome. I've got last year when DC came to St. Louis, DC and St. Louis have always been very competitive against each other. It's always been a good close nip and tuck game. This year, I don't think it's going to be any different. I think that DC is going to find a way to hang around, and I think that ultimately, I think St. Louis will get the win, but I think it's going to be a hard-fought win. So, I look in the neighborhood of maybe 20 to 16, something like that would be a score I would look at. But I think St. Louis will get the dub and get to 3-0.
Speaking of lines, what a perfect scenario what this would be for Vegas and the sports books. You think of all these parlays, it'd be very easy to just pick all the favorites, all the home teams. When I think about what's the one that would ruin it for somebody, I think it's this DC Defenders and St. Louis game here. What a perfect trap for someone to, they blew out the first 2 teams, but who were these first 2 teams? Eric makes the point that, you got to take care of the games you're supposed to win, and they certainly have taken care of the teams they're supposed to. However, what's has been ground dominant. Let's see. What if St. Louis has to put it in the air? Now they're going to have home crowd advantage, which, I'm sure they're quiet. They're when the offense is on the field and all that stuff. But I'm still going to go strategically with the St. Louis Battlehawks to keep pace. I don't want to fall behind these picks that we do on the bottom line. Now, how all these other guys are going to I'm feeling how they were going to pick. So it's like, I think this could very easily go the way of the DC Defenders, but I'm not going to, that's too much risk early on in the season. So I'm going to go with the Battlehawks just based on the ground game and everything I've seen so far. So it'd be, no harm and no shame in picking the Battlehawks right now. So I'll take the Battlehawks here, but I won't be surprised if this is the one that the big upset of the weekend.
So, Brett, take it home here.
St. Louis. I think all 4 games this weekend, I would be surprised and hopeful that it's going to have good ratings. These are going to be some close, hard-hitting ball games. These are good matchups, real good matchups. But St. Louis in a close one. I think DC might cover.
We did the same thing last week, but it was the Birmingham one that spoiled the bunch. Which one's the game here that's gonna get us here? So let's see if we get the perfect sweep.
Yeah, there's always one.
I think these defensive games too. I know they keep on the broadcast, almost doing us a disservice by talking about the under, and I get the under. But when do we lose the appreciation for good defensive football? Back in the 80s and whatnot, you saw these, 10-9 games, and they're always like brutally exciting because one play could just turn the thing. I mean, and that's what I feel like watching these games now. It's not these track meets up and down where it's 48-49 and who's going to score next and what pass interference call is going to set them up. These feel like it feels like football. It's kind of a nice throwback. I've actually enjoyed the first 2 weeks and the lower scoring games, to be honest with you.
That's why I'm such a retro fan. That was before my time, of course, but the USFL as its own brand felt like really like retro to me. I went to the Canton. They had the Maulers and the Panthers played in the USFL conference championship, and that was
one of the greatest games I've ever seen in my life.
Oh my goodness, it was great, and just for like the people that were there too. I mean, we went to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Me and my brother did the next morning, and what a weekend! I hope Canton can get football from the spring football again. Just go to the Hall of Fame too as a part of, if your road team there. That's why I hope in this expansion now. I hope Ohio. Don't call it Canton. Don't call it Columbus. Be it so you can bill it as Michigan versus Ohio. That's how you want to bill it there. So, but I hope that's the case. Hall of Fame is a must see, and I hope they do. With this UFL thing takes off for the long haul, maybe they get a wing there, a bigger selection where these guys who may not be in the NFL anymore or just want to keep playing, maybe get them in the Hall of Fame. CFL has a Hall of Fame. I'd like to see UFL have like its own Hall of Fame, so we can get some guy like maybe Luis Perez in a spring football Hall of Fame and have a little ceremony there.
Yeah.
So,
Alex, who did you take?
You put me on the spot. I'm going to take St. Louis. That's a safe pick for me. I think it's going to be I think DC will cover. I think it's going to be 18-15, 18-16.
It's the biggest spread too. 7 points, biggest of all the games. So
yeah, and I could be wrong. I mean, hell, I picked Birmingham to beat DC, and DC absolutely destroyed Birmingham in week 1. It was just a beat down, just a total beating that DC administered on Birmingham. It was like
he emphasized that, Brett. Did you hear that? It was.
He was trying to get a rise out of you, Brett, and you didn't even waver. That's impressive.
We all, hey, if you got any questions about what happened in the rematch, call Wade Phillips. That's all I got to say.
So, anyway, thanks again, Alex, for joining us, and it won't be the last time. We always enjoy having you on.
Yeah, it's fun. You guys are a good bunch. You do a really good job.
Why don't you tell us where we can find you?
Yeah, it's Spot the Ball. I'm kind of old school. I don't have Facebook and all that stuff, but if you ever want to just talk a little ball, you can check me out at Spot the Ball 14. And I appreciate you guys having me on, and look forward to joining again. And until we meet again,
you'll be back.
So long, everybody.
See you, buddy.
Thanks, Alex.
Thanks again, Alex.
So, God, I don't know what we're gonna do, guys.
Oh, we gotta.
I don't know what we're gonna do because, tell you what, there's a lot of good stuff we have on our show.
Lots of good stuff.
When you look at what can you cut out, what can you cut out?
You can't. There's not enough time in the day for all the UFL that we want to talk about. I see. That's why I don't breathe, because there's so much stuff to talk about.
Yeah, you don't breathe either.
I'm trying.
Mike's gonna be like, he's just gonna go. We're like, what? Did he pass out?
Yeah, hope it's on hope it's at a UFL game too, or it's like you'll find me at a UFL game. That's where I want it to be. And spread my ashes at the goal line at Ford Field.
All right, Ed, we're way over, man. We gotta go.
I want to thank all the pages out there who allow us to continue to post. We've got a lot of content. One of the things we have to talk about is the Bottom Line Crew is the NFL draft is just around the corner, and if you remember right, last year the Bottom Line Crew did a live NFL draft on that opening Thursday night. I think we went 3 hours that night, didn't we, guys?
Yeah, I think we did.
I can't wait.
I think we're going to look at doing that again this year because really seemed like we got a good response to it, and we were like the swamis of some of the draft night trades that went down. So,
and the New York Jets select tight end. Oh no! I love the draft. The draft is my favorite.
Yeah, I believe that was a fullback. I believe they took a fullback.
Yeah, he's a fullback. He wasn't a tight end, but yeah.
We should have, for those wondering, you can check that out. Just go to YouTube, type in NFL Jets draft blunders. It's a whole nice reel.
Then it was. Well, rumors are flying that Sam Darnold is going to be traded or whatever, going to be signing with somebody, and right away I'm like, if Minnesota takes him, I mean, sure enough. I mean, you can't write this stuff. So
he won 14 games, man. Can't bag on him. You're wrong.
Yep, that's right. So anyway, so again, thank you to all the pages out there that let us share our shows to the page. I mean, we've had some really good success, and we really appreciate everybody who views.
And all the viewers out there, yeah, if you got something you want to say, you want to come on the show, leave us a message on Facebook. We'll have you on. Let's see what we can do for you. Come on in.
And shout out to Wild Sun Winery.
Wild Sun Winery, who, as Eric found out this last weekend, have some real quality wine and beer.
I saw the photos. He was living it up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he was definitely enjoying himself. But with that said, everybody, thanks for joining us again this week. Enjoy the games. I can't believe we're already heading into week 3. God, it'll be before you know it, it'll be like the season's going to be wrapping up. So enjoy some football while you can. And we will see you again next Wednesday, 8 o'clock Central. Have a great weekend, everybody.
And that's